My name's Sonya Jones. I'm a service manager for a young person substance misuse team, and I'm also a safeguarding lead. What I'd like to do today is to talk to you about the national disgrace that we have in the UK at the moment and around the exploitation of vulnerable children and adults. Criminal exploitation is barbaric. Children and adults are abused and controlled so that other people can get them to do things that they don't want to do themselves. I've written on this in The Guardian, I've written blogs, I've taken part in podcasts, I've worked with local BBC radio station on highlighting this, and I believe passionately that everybody needs to know that this is happening right here, right now. The exploitation of children is a huge concern. There are thousands and thousands of children who are being exploited in the UK. We don't really know the actual numbers of this. We really need to have a national strategy. We really need to have an open and honest debate. I'm constantly on Twitter along with fellow agencies and professionals and people with lived experience who want this to change. It's hidden. Nobody really cares that it's happening. And if you look at it, you're talking about children who are being abused. You're talking about adults who are maybe just seen as junkies or people who society has just totally washed their hands of. You're talking about children who are referred to on a daily basis as chavs and louts. They're really marginalised. Nobody really cares. I don't know how we've got to this in society, that it can happen, and it happens on a daily basis. I spent hours and hours campaigning to raise awareness for this, especially in relation to a criminal exploitation strategy. We really need to have change. People ask me, why do I do it? And the reason I do it is that things changed for me in 2015. At the time, I was a service manager and I was managing a massive service. It was a young person service and an adult service. I had a team of 70 staff and also was responsible for the care that the people who used our services. I've worked in substance misuse for 20 years and it is a dark place to work. But the rewards are huge. I was at that time, and still am, I hope, a very hands-on manager. I didn't lock myself away in the office. I was out there, I was meeting with the people who used our service. What I noticed in 2015, through conversations with the adult service users in particular, was that they had become really fearful. They'd become fearful because local dealers at the time had been bullied and abused and threatened by a new group of dealers that were setting up in the areas. These were dealers and gangs from Merseyside who completely took over drug dealing in the local areas. They moved in and moved the local dealers out. I remember having conversations with some of the service users, and one guy in particular who was a real character. And actually, you wouldn't want to mess with him. He'd been in and out of prison all of his life. He used to call me Mum, and I'd be like, no, it's Sonya, it's not Mum. But he was so institutionalised. And he said to me, he's seen nothing like it. Nothing like the level of violence that they were using. He was telling me that, they're taking over people's houses, which we now know as cuckooing. And he said that the worrying thing about it is that they got kids with them. So immediately, safeguarding was just like, what? What do you mean kids? And he's like, they got young lads with them. They're only kids. And it's just violence, violence, violence. That's all it's about. I wanted him to tell me more about the kids in particular, but the shutters went up and he just wouldn't talk about it anymore because he was too scared. They started to really ramp it up in level of violence because they really needed to stamp their authority in the area. There are 2 male service users that will stay with me as to what happened to them. The one was a lad who was really trying to turn his life around. He'd actually been given a flat not so long before all of this had happened, so he was really geared up to making these changes. The only problem was he owed 100 quid and they wanted the money back. But part of me now, what I know, they wanted to make an example of him as well. This is a tragic case of that. The lead up to Christmas it happened, and he and 2 mates were taken down by a local river, a fast flowing river, and he was told that he could clear the 100 quid debt if he swam across it. He was last seen entering the river at 7:30 that evening, and the next thing we know, there's an appeal that he was missing. But what happened over the next few days was that the mates that were with him came in to see their workers, and they told them that he was frog marched to that river. He was stripped by the gang. He was told to swim for it. He went in. He was taken under by the current. He came up and he went back down again, and he was never seen. Even though his friends, 2 mates, tried to go in to save him, they weren't allowed. But the most sickening thing about this was that the gang filmed it. And again, there were kids present. The workers tried their best to get these adult service users to talk about this to the police, but they wouldn't. The shutters were up, they were too scared. But we passed on all this information to the police. But yet again, the police were met with a wall of silence. Nobody would speak. The other one is a lad who went missing. He just disappeared overnight. After weeks of appeals, his mum and his sister came to see me. They wanted to put posters up in reception. He hadn't been seen, and I was speaking with them, and it was just desperate. She was a desperate mum trying to find her son. She was a desperate sister trying to find her brother. I asked, where did they think he was? And again, they said that his friends had said that they would never see him again, that he was probably at the bottom of the Mersey. He's never been found to this day. But it's that raw grief, that seeing firsthand of what families are going through, which is horrendous. 2016 changed it completely. I'd actually gone from that seconded role, gone back to manage the young person's service, and I was doing far more with the safeguarding lead role. But in 2016, in the August, news came through that a 16-year-old boy had been stabbed to death on a local estate. The community was in absolute chaos that a 16-year-old boy could be murdered in the streets. As news trickled through, it became clear that this wasn't a boy from a local area. His home was 80 miles away. He was a boy from Merseyside. And what had happened on that night was that there was a pitched battle between 2 gangs who were vying for territory. They were vying to control the lines in that area in relation to the distribution. He was stabbed to death miles away from home. That area went into complete lockdown. But within 48 hours, new lines had sprang up. So the distribution of Class A has started again. And they needed to recruit, and they needed to recruit fast. So the gang changed the model. And what they did was that they decided to recruit local kids. And that model is still with us today in 2020. Nothing's changed. They're still recruiting local kids. They're still abusing them. They're still exploiting them. Kids are being made to do things that they shouldn't be doing. They are so brainwashed that they really see they have no choice. Many of them are in debt bondage. Therefore, they can never find a way out of this. Adult service users still continue to be abused. Properties still continue to be cuckooed. Nothing's really changed since 2015. There has been headway in relation to county lines, in relation to serious organised crime. But actually on the ground, nothing's changed at all. This can't happen. It can't continue to happen. Children and adults cannot be exploited in this way. No one should be scared on a daily basis. But it just carries on. And I continue to campaign along with fellows campaigners. We need to have a child criminal national exploitation strategy. We have to have that. We have to really know what the true picture is. This was just one town, one small market town. Imagine what it's like across the UK. It's happening right here, and it's happening right now. So I call for anybody with any political power whatsoever, please, please make this a priority, because this has to end. Thank you.